quick sound check. Okay, looks good. All right, so yep, we're already back. Let me just cool. So where we left off, we were working on the fuzzy finding. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So we'll need a new database. Let's start a new database. One second. Okay. Fuzzy find, db, create. Okay, so we're gonna import, let's see the behavior now. So we have our messy transactions, select. Okay, so it's giving us the date, description, that's right, we want to clean up descriptions. Potentially add a new column for dedicated dictionary name. That way as users, when they're looking at that ledger, they don't have to look at their description. They can easily parse just what it looks like, or now, the name of what it is. So we'll just pull Acme payroll out of this description, put it in a column, then automatically hide the description, not get rid of it or anything, but just kind of either put it in its own column or hide it. I wonder what's an elegant way to do that. Maybe hide it in the same column. That could work. Okay, so yeah, they import it. This looks good. Date, description, amount, notes, continue. Okay, this looks good. Yep, that looks nice. Import. Okay, and what's our percentage here? And as long as they're accurate, I will tolerate a lower percentage as long as it's completely accurate. So 17.4. Okay, so it's still 68, 69%-ish. Auto completion, that's not too bad. We still want to get that up, but that's not bad. It's a good starting point. The main thing is just making sure that things are accurate. I do remember, I think it associated rent with travel. Yes, it did. Yeah, so we want to fix that. So that's probably going to be our next prompt. Direct deposit is uncategorized. That may have to stay uncategorized. I mean, direct deposit doesn't always, necessarily mean a paycheck. It is income. It's obviously classified as income, but direct deposit is not descriptive enough to confidently give it a category, I don't think. So we'll just put stars next to that. Uncategorized does not cascade. We fixed that. That was never gone. We just had to move the setting, so that looks good. Okay, yeah, let's work on fixing rent. So rent, travel. Let's poke Claude's brain and figure out maybe why that's happening in the first place. Maybe there's a justification for that. And if not, then let's just fix that. So we do not need anything too crazy for this. Sonnet medium should be fine. When performing a transaction import, the dictionary I don't know if it's the dictionary or the corpus that's doing this, but the app automatically categorizes one of our transactions as travel, even though the description, whoops, is thank you. Why does it currently do this? And is there a case to be made for a stronger weight, stronger correlation between rent in the description and the rent mortgage category? Because it seems pretty intuitive to us that rent should mean rent. But when Claude made this, it pulled, like, look at this, right? There's like Expedia, Booking.com. I saw Buc-ee's. I mean, there's all these kind of crazy merchants out there that have all these crazy names. So it's not out of the question that there could be a travel service or company or whatever that has rent in the name, and that's part of the dictionary, and it added that automatically. So, you know, let's see if that is the case. If not, then we should just assume that it's mortgage or rent, but we'll see what it says. And while this is going, so quick explanation on like the dictionary and all that. So yes, Aventurine, the app, does not connect to the internet, but we do training, and we pull resources and research from the internet. So what that looks like is we'll have Claude reach out to the internet and look at the top 20% most used merchants for the last like 10 years. This is based off of like a Pareto principle. If you're not familiar, a Pareto principle is that like 80% of the effort is done by 20% of the resources. And this can apply to like a bunch of different things, different concepts, not only just like in like apps or logic, but like economics and stuff like that. So it goes out and it finds the 20% most used merchants, which are going to be responsible for 80% of all the entries on people's ledgers, and it pulled those into a dictionary and then associated them with our category corpus. So then I had Claude create a bunch of synthetic training data, which means I just asked it, kind of like we did earlier in the previous stream, create a bunch of messy, gross transactions that are completely fake, and let's train our model and weightings so that it associates those with the correct categories. So as you can see, the bare description misses all determinate classifiers, no merchant lexicon, entry or keyword matches, falls through the tier 3 statistical classifier. So that's like our weightings, which fires travel at 85 confidence, clearing the 8 auto apply bar. I trace the actual feature weights and shipped model assigns. Street to travel, rents to travel, apartments ignored, Maple, roughly flat across all classes, Maple Donuts, Maple Street, it's hard to say, right? Both street and rent are strongly travel associated in the trained model, and that's a training data leak, not a coincidence. Sure. Street leaks from the lexicon entry, St. Regis. Street. Okay, yeah, you travel. Synthetic data generator, synth, gen positive, ramps from the whole lexicon, needle noise, translate verbatim, but the classifier. So, meanwhile, the rents category, descriptor words are apartments, apartment homes, property management, realty, leasing, mortgage, home loans. Never the word rent itself. That's a deliberate exclusion carried over from tier 1 to substring matching comment. Bare rent is right. Okay, so that makes sense. So rent never gets pre. Is there a case for yes and the substring ambiguity objection? The clock doesn't apply to tier 3. The classifier Recommended fix: add rent and probably apt apartments as explicit descriptor tokens in descriptors in sense.js. Retrain. Okay, so it's saying, yeah, we could probably just add rent to the model, and there shouldn't be any issues. So yes. So and when I say model, again, we're not using AI in the app itself. We're using AI to build the app, but there's no AI in the app itself. This is just a normal statistical model that we're using. It's not an AI model. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. So yeah, it's rent, and here's all of the words, the possible tokens or dictionary words that you would see in the descriptor that would weight it towards rent. So we're going to add rent, but also APT, APTS, rent payment, and rent payment. So I think that's smart. I think that makes sense. And we shouldn't see any conflicts. Hampton, Airbnb, Hertz. Yeah. So I think it's a pretty good system. It's a good compromise. Again, I really do not want the app talking to the internet. If I could just grab the top 20% merchants for all the different categories and just pre-train. And again, when I say train, we're not talking about AI training, but just sort of bake that in as a dictionary for our program. We get 80% of the functionality. Again, that Pareto kind of number, that's kind of what we're shooting for. 80% of the functionality, but we're not having to give up privacy. We're not implementing trust. We're not handing over credentials, integrations, any of that. And that's really what I want. So I am happy with where this is going. And again, doing it this way, just doing it local. I mean, the program, last I checked, I mean, when it's fully installed, it's still less than half a gigabyte. So this does not add computational overhead whatsoever, really. So there's no justification for me saying, oh, let's go ahead and we need to host a data repository. We need a server. Oh, yeah, now we need to run a subscription. We got to charge for the subscription. You got to make an account because we got to be able to constantly feed you data. I don't actually see a case for that yet. Maybe we'll run into that. I don't think we will. I think we can get, again, 80, maybe even 90% of all of the automatic categorization and functionality just from pulling a quick snapshot of market merchant trends, and maybe doing that once every 3, 6, 12 months, if that, and you'll be there. So yeah, that's what we're doing. And like I said, Sonnet is perfectly fine for this. I actually really like Sonnet, to be honest. I don't know how other people feel, but Sonnet compared to Opus, I think Sonnet actually is a little better than Opus when it comes to doing this kind of coding stuff. I feel like Opus tries way too hard, gets way too ahead of itself, and it gets complicated. It blows up that context window really quickly, and that can create problems. Not to say that it's unusable or anything. I used Opus 4.8 for tons of features, especially when Fable's not available. But for a very focused task like this, Sonnet I think is fantastic. So, yep. Great. 2 files changed. looks good. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and test. Blow this up. New database. I mean, it'd be kind of nice to have a feature that just blows up the current database, but practically I don't think a user would actually want that, so I'm not going to do that right now. But new test. All good. We can just keep recreating these. Okay. Add transactions, import transactions, downloads, messy, select. Date, description, amount, looks good. Continue. Same deal. 1205. That seems like less. It is less. Why is it less? I mean, it didn't. Am I missing something? Venmo payment rent share. A roommate peer-to-peer split that must stay unclassified, so it's generally ambiguous even at the word level. I mean, rent share as, but if, why? Okay. Right. No longer fires travel. That's at least good. Okay, so that's why it didn't classify it as rent, but it didn't classify it as travel either. The street token still leans travel, leaking from the street regis lexicon and outweighs the new apartment signal, but the abstention gate catches that and refuses to fire, which is the intended precision first behavior. Fair enough. True absolute classifier. Okay, 7% recall 0 wrong. Okay, so we have to make a decision. Do we force it through? I mean, I feel like it's being overly picky. Like, it has these arbitrary things, like a Venmo payment that says rent share for like roommates or whatever, and saying, well, you know, we don't know what it is, but in reality we do, because if it's a positive integer, it's just we can classify it as other in our income. And if it's negative, then it's still rent. You're still paying rent as a roommate. So I feel like it's being petty, and we just got to tell it to stop. So I think we're good staying on the same model. We just got to tell it to get its shit together. So I don't think the collision you brought up is a real concern. If the integer is positive, then it's simply just other income or uncategorized income. And if it's negative, then Venmo rent share should absolutely be categorized as rent. Investigate and update. Investigate's a good word. Because it'll do some more probing. I find that if you're like, I don't know, what's the word? If you use something more deterministic, like go look at this, then it'll tunnel vision it. It'll only look at that one thing. It'll completely leave out all other context, which is a waste because it collects all that other context when it's looking in the first place. So, but investigate is just like kind of take a look at everything, and it's not so quick to make changes. It's going to be like, if you tell it to investigate, it'll come back and be like, hey, this is what I found, this is what I think. you know, so it's just a little more wider in scope. I know that sounds probably ridiculous, but it's true. If you try it out, if the difference between like go take a look at this particular thing and investigate this issue, you'll get vastly different results. You can just go test it yourself. Yeah, what did I write up here? Bare rent is safe descriptor at word level. Tokenized splits on non-alnum, so parent current never collapses into it. A rent flavored description that's actually a peer-to-peer transfer reimbursement. A event mode is still a direction gated downstream. Apply, build, categorize, only applies. Yeah, okay. It has a weird way of like making these really not great run-on sentences, to be honest. But I get what it's saying. Positive amount reimbursement can never be mislabeled rent, even if the classifier fires on it. Which, yeah, there's a simpler way to say that, but whatever. Maybe I'll add that into the skill. Because AI has a tendency to just create these overly complex descriptions with all these fancy words. I think that works against it. And I think if you do too much of that, it starts hallucinating. Where does that live? Architecture. Comment. Nope, not in this one. It should be. Readability. Co-standard internet testing, documentation. Better rules, good practice. I mean, yeah, senior engineer, you know, want them to know. Write comments using just enough technical verbiage so that they are not overly complex and difficult to read. Maybe that belongs somewhere else. Put it there, see if that helps. You were right. Thank you. I might be. I might not be. Don't agree with the AI too much. You'll get psychosis. Investigated and agree. Direction guard. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. I don't really care. I just want to see how it performs. Okay. File, new database. Browse. New test again. Create. Downloads. Transactions. Continue. Why in the world would American Eagle Flight 4412 fire as rent? I have to know. Okay. The gate is loosened. Can you train up the rent so that it meets the gate? Because I just don't see the justification for why there's so little confidence in rent being rent. Right? I mean, am I crazy here? Yeah, and this is, you know, good idea. Yeah, this is why I wouldn't just quite, you know, prompt prompt an AI on a loop and just say, here's a goal and get it. Because I like imagine all of the tokens it might have spent doing this really stupid work, right? Like being that human in the middle along the way and just making sure, hey, does this make sense? You know, um, I think it's going to end up saving me time and money because we're not going to have to do a crazy, ridiculous refactor on the entire freaking model because it was like, you know what? Let's just like rent is not rent, you know. And which gate is this? See, and there's like multiple gates. And I know, okay, so I know why there's multiple gates, but yeah, I mean, this is just. Hmm. Alright, let's see. Both target cases ran correctly, gate unchanged. Recall held, zero wrong fires. Which I don't really know how it knows there's a wrong fire because I'm the one who brought it up. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely the hardest part. It's the most complex part of this app is auto categorizing without doing like a direct like online comparison lookup. Um, but it's what we got to do if we want perfect privacy. We got to do something. So let's try it again. It's getting more and more gibberish as we go. messy. Okay, continue. Okay, so we're back at 1227. Great. And that's because rent is rent. Great. And if we do category, and if we look at rent, Maple Street, Maple Street, Maple Street, looks good. Looks great. Yep, that's exactly what we want. So just a training issue, I guess. We'll have to kind of look out for that. What I don't like about that is, you know, how do we know how much training data is enough and how much to do, right? Like if I there is a limit. It's not infinite. You don't need to keep training because merchants are always going to try to be as specific as possible, right? Like Netflix is always going to try to put Netflix somewhere in their description, right? And rent or payments or whatever is always they're always gonna try to make it as descriptive as possible without sacrificing what they need to do as merchants to have, you know, unique identifiers or whatever. So yeah, I think it's actually a non-issue. It's fine. We just might need a little bit more training data, but it's not like an ongoing thing. I don't think it's an ongoing thing, which is what I was worried about in thinking about it. I don't think it's an issue. Okay, cool. So that works. What's next on the to do? So we fixed that. Direct deposit, we're not going to touch. Training data. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Probably just going to ignore that. I would like this description. Yeah, I'd like to find a way to just have a nice clean merchant name on this ledger so that these descriptions aren't taking up visual space, because this is just, it's ugly, and the whole point is to take what's ugly and make it not ugly, make it pretty. So maybe like a toggle or a separate column. I mean, if you had a separate column, the description's just there. It's still there. It's still ugly. So I'd like to just replace the description, but I want to have it so that users still have access to the description, because that's what's going to make sense if they're fuzzy finding when they're making an edit, right? Or it's going to help, I would imagine. So, yeah, how do we go about that? Let's ask an open-ended question, because we do that a lot. Let's ask. I have an idea. I would like to make the transaction ledger even cleaner for the user by hiding the messy description and replacing it with a clean merchant name or description. Can come. Let's not ask it too much of a leading question here. So I was thinking it could come from the dictionary that we have for our app, but it doesn't have to. You may even be able to just pull it straight from the string. I mean, there's clever ways of doing this. So clean merchant name or description. What are some viable options for that? I also want to preserve the original description and want users to have access, easy access to it as well. So maybe a UI toggle or something. What are your thoughts? Yeah, let's see. Claude has come up with good ideas before. He has. There are several features that I was like stuck on, and I asked Claude, and Claude was like, "Here's an idea," and I was like, "Oh wow, that's smart." What do we got here? Good extension of the same precision first pattern already used for categorization might take source the clean name from confidence tiers. The lexicon already has canonical merchant names for its 980 entries. High confidence, use as is, but for keyword classifier hits. Right, don't invent. Just apply the existing normalizer. Yes, that makes sense. For the toggle, I'd skip a global setting toggle. Users won't find it, and it fights the set it and forget it positioning. Instead, make original description a per row reveal. Yeah, I like that. Click the row. Main trade-off per row is more scannable at rest, but a tiny bit more friction if a power user wants raw descriptions visible everywhere. Debugging a bad import. That's true. The use case may still want a show all originals toggle. But on the flip side, we have easy exporting. So if they wanted to debug their database, they could just export it, and it would give them everything, and it would be in Excel, right? Like, I don't necessarily want the app to try to replicate like full-blown like troubleshooting, right? Like something like Excel is probably going to be way more powerful for that anyway. The whole idea is just get the transactions in, give them a dashboard, give them insights. Maybe. Yeah, let's turn up to Fable. Let's do mediums, plenty. Yes, I like this. Implement this. I am fine with the main trade-off. Go ahead and implement this. Yeah, okay. Probably should have put this in a branch. That's fine. I'm really bad at Git. Really bad. I mean, I do all right. We got a lot of branches for a lot of things, but there's also just, strings of just not branching and just pushing shit without a branch. So it's what it is. Gotta get better. But it's not a huge deal. Not too worried about it. Yep, I think this will be good. Once it's done. Front end ledger page arranging and edit paths. Okay. It's not picking it up, is it? There. Almost done. Yeah, we're actually going to pull out. I'm going to make this like a clean to-do list here so I can share this with you guys. Some of this I'm not doing, by the way. We're just going to clean this up right now while we're waiting for homeboy here. So to note to do list. There we go. We already did that. Yeah, we're not doing that. Yeah. Could be cool. Communicate. Yeah. So should calendar. That's an interesting one. It's not really a to-do. It's like a feature. We already did this. That's a feature. Well, look at that. Budgeting, we gotta work on that. Table preview and category section. That could be interesting. Import success modal could be bigger. Budgeting stuff. We do need an onboarding workflow. That's a big one. Clean up descriptors, add new column for dedicated. Yeah, we're not doing that, but we are. Descriptions. Toggle. Yeah. I forget what these are called. Okay. All right. 1 second. All right, we're back. Looks like it's not done yet. Oh, almost. Yeah, it's reading. Yeah, it brings up the app and then it takes screenshots and then it stores the screenshots temporarily, looks at them, and then deletes them afterwards. It's pretty interesting. Pretty cool. Kind of just another way to verify that things are working. There have been plenty of instances where I've asked it to do something, it does that, and it one-shots it, so I would imagine it works. It helps. All right, home stretch. Let's see if this works. This would be nice if we get it in one shot. Okay, it says done, verified end to end, imported rows. Now show a clean merchant name, shell oil instead of check card, shell oil raw. With the raw bank string one click away under a per row chevron. Nice. All 201 backend tests passed, and it is clean, or lint is clean rather. And it confirmed the rendering with a live electron screenshot probe. All right, let's take a peek. Let's see. Well, I'll be damned. I don't see nothing. Look at that. I wonder if it's only going to work on stuff going forward. So let's try a new one. I'd be fine with that if it works just going forward. There we go. Yeah, that's nice. I think it could be a little more obvious, maybe. But maybe not. I don't know. these names I'm noticing are pretty silly. Maybe that's okay. I mean, what in tarnation? Yeah, and seeing that's shopping. This gas is shopping instead of just auto and transport. Yeah, I mean, this is just... Yeah, the problem with this is... There's a couple problems with this. So... I gotta think this through. Okay, so... The issue is that... If we get something... So the issue is that it looks like this. And it doesn't really help, right? Because the user is trained that, oh, this is going to simplify things. So when it sees McDonald's F24 540 spring feel, a user is going to look at that and be like, something was wrong, right? Because it should just say McDonald's, because the rest of the ledger is simplified. And so if something comes up and it looks like that, they're like, okay, something's wrong. So that takes away confidence in the UI. Second of all, if we go in and ask it, okay, just match it to a dictionary instead of pulling like these strings out of the original description, if it gets it wrong, then it's completely obfuscated as to what it is, right? So it might just say Kroger, and then over here it'll say travel, and then when you expand it out, you would have to expand it out to see, oh yeah, it says Kroger flight, you know, maybe bought like a flight of beers or something. You know, and it says travel or whatever. That's obfuscated, and it's not immediately obvious. And so a wrong becomes even more wrong under a more simplified description, because it's not obvious to the user, I think. So... Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? It's a head scratcher. Because, I mean, this is like extra wrong, right? Like if you have just a gnarly description here, and plus it's confusing, right? Like Planet Fit club fees. So, you know, it seems like it intuitively knows, oh yeah, this is Planet Fit, but then it's uncategorized. So I feel like if it's uncategorized, it should not concatenate or condense or shrink or whatever, shorten the description or the string, because it seems dumb. Why would it? Why would it know? Yeah, and I'm thinking from like the user perspective. Like if I booted this up, I'd be like, well, how does it know it's Planet Fit, but it doesn't know what Planet Fit is? But, you know, it knows what Walmart, you know what I mean? So this is ugly. This is gross. I think what we're going to do is stuff around. Excuse me. Yeah, we need to fix this. It's got to be better. Now, here's an idea. We could allow the user to rename it. Right? We already do. We could call this Verizon. Which solves a couple of problems, because we don't have to do like a crazy like dictionary like cipher lookup for this weird nonsense. This is clearly Verizon Wireless, but training to get the model to be like, that's Verizon Wireless, would be just terrible. We could just have the user update it. I'm trying to avoid having the user do too much. We're trying to avoid friction for the user. We don't want too many contact points. But I feel like having the user do just a little bit of work rather than giving the user wrong information and ruining confidence is the trade-off here. I'd rather go in and be like, yes, this is Verizon. And Verizon is a utility. And I say, find similar, click next. There's no other transactions like it, but whatever. Next, save changes. And then bam, it's Verizon now. That creates a lot of complexity. Because if all we had was just this one ledger, it'd be fine, right? But we anticipate that people will export their bank statements like once a month, like at the end of the month. And so we want rules to be remembered so that when they do it again, they don't have to go back and do it all over again. Like you should just do it once. So, and I don't want that to conflict. This is the thing with vibe coding, right? Like, you don't want to create conflicts, because if I just was like, oh, you know what? Okay, if I just put my stream of consciousness right now into a prompt, it would do it and it would fix it, but it would probably create more conflicts, and then you're so deep that you don't even know how to prompt to have it fix it. And so you'd have to do a refactor, which is expensive and stupid. So in this case, though, I think we're not in a bad spot. What we just need to do is we just need to sort of pull back a little bit on the confidence rating and the auto categorization. Obviously, we want that to be as high as possible, but not at the expense of just creating more work that's buried, right? Because this is work that's obvious and this is okay. The user, this makes sense. I wouldn't mind doing this as a user, but work that's buried and that's like, you know, oh my gosh, Kroger is travel, you know, Planet Fitness was rent or whatever. We don't want that. So Yeah. We may need to backpedal on some things. Right now, UX erodes trust in the app because a transaction could have a normalized description but still be left uncategorized, which leaves the user confused. Additionally, the normalized shorthand of the description still uses artifacts, messy artifacts from the description, which doesn't actually clear up any ambiguity. What I think we need to do is lean less on a more rigorous model and backend and allow the user to make their own decisions on how to classify and label transactions, and then have the backend remember those changes for future imports. So I would like to have en masse description changes and category changes for transactions. I have a skill that we're going to invoke. It's called roast. It intentionally invokes pushback. Creates like it creates like a handful of personalities that act as like a council, and sort of look at it through like a business strategy lens. It was actually a skill that I found from Nate Hewick on his YouTube channel, so check that out. It's pretty good. I've been using it. It's interesting. It's not like perfect. It's not groundbreaking or anything, but what are your thoughts? And we're on Fable for this. I think it's fine. The usage is, I don't think we'll hit our limit. Let me see. Yeah, more than I'd like, but we're going to be wrapping up this session here shortly anyway, so no big deal. Web search. One thing I'm noticing is that it looks like it's looking up actual budget. That's like another competitor. I guess they already have something that kind of does that, so it's looking at what that looks like. The cancel rows. Scope note, this is a feature inside of entry. Okay. Contrarian, the idea can quietly violate the founder's own prime directive. The whole categorizer stands on never confidently wrong. A cleaning function is a rewrite shown by default. And rewrites have failure modes. Categorization doesn't. It seems like a stretch. Payment to landlord becomes to landlord. Visa DDA per merchant loses words that carried meaning, and every one of those reads as the app being sloppy on the most. Oh, I see. So if the user strips out the description, auto categorization, and thus fuzzy finding loses precision. Makes sense. Okay. Blank category cell is visibly honest. A mangled merchant name is visibly wrong. Hiding source data in a finance tool is not automatically cleaner. It can be scarier. The core buyer of a local first own your own data app is precisely the person who reconciles against their bank statement. If the ledger says Shell Oil, the bank PDF says check card, that's fine if they discover the reveal. A chevron that only appears on hover is subtle to the point of deniability. The user who never hovers just experiences this app changed my data. Really? Maybe. The noise patterns are US English centric. True. State codes, US phone formats, check card. A German or Canadian export gets partial inconsistent cleaning, some rows tidied, some raw, which looks worse than uniformly raw. Would it kill the business? No. Worst case is reverting a display column. Okay. Import is a make or break feature. True, but a perfect import that dumps into the table looks like a failed import. Clean names are the difference between the magic being real and magic being felt. I kind of agree. Every screenshot, every demo GIF, every landing page hero now shows a ledger that looks like copilots from a one-time purchase offline app. The ladder it unlocks is long. Merchant level spend group. You spent $412 at Costco this year. Subscriptions recurring detection keyed on stable merchant identity instead of fuzzy raw strings, merchant logos, and eventually spend by merchant analytics, all of which the cloud apps gate behind subscriptions, and all of which need exactly this canonical name layer as the foundation. Right? The display name column is quietly the merchant identity primary key for every future feature. Yes. Cost was 1 day. Reuse the categorizers normalizer. No new depths. No model. Asymmetric bet. Tiny investment. Compounding surface area payoff. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's true, right? Like, okay, so first principles, I mean, like, if we just strip the crap from the get-go, like the numbers, the date, because a lot of those are dates from the merchant, which we don't need, because we're getting the date straight from our bank. This actually makes it much easier for us to auto-categorize with confidence. Where is that it subtracts noise rather than asserts facts. A lexicon that maps Shell Oil Company can be wrong. A cleaner that merely deleted cannot invent a merchant that wasn't there. This is table stakes in the cloud tier and absent by default in the local tier, which is exactly Aventuring's gap to exploit. Copilot, $95 a year, markets AI transaction cleanup categorization as its headline feature, and reviewers call its transaction AI the best in category. Monarch and You Need a Budget do payee normalization server side via aggregator enrichment. Played. The raw string never even reaches the user. The direct competitor Actual Budget does not clean cold. Its docs walk users through manually renaming and then creating a rule so it's clean next time, right? Automatic zero config on device cleaning on the first import is a real differentiator against the free option. Precisely the buyer decision point the judges identified. Target buyer, privacy first, reads cleaned on your machine, original always preserved as a feature. I agree. The preservation clause is load bearing for this audience. Not a nice to have. I agree. Pricing impact, non-directly. It's value density for the existing one-time price. Okay. Yeah, I think I want to think on this. Yeah, I want to think this through because I really don't have to go back and refactor some things. Yeah, why don't we call it for now? I'm going to rethink kind of how we're going to approach this. And next time I think we'll prompt out and get an update going. So cool, sounds good. We'll tackle this next time. While I think strategically about how to do this, and yeah, we will continue on. So all right, catch you next time.